What's the creepiest things you've accidentally discovered about your close friends? I went on my friend's computer to go on Reddit. As I do at home, I typed Ray down and enter. Instead of the familiar layout of top Reddit, I was greeted with a big "Oh Lord Jesus, there was a fire." The website was dedicated to recreational prosthetics. I had not clue what that was and began to read the site content. Why was he on a website for people who like to dress up as injured people? Website connected people who like to get off on the injured, amputeed, and casted. I realized I was not to be caught browsing this. I looked up the stairs and didn't see any sign of him coming down soon. As my eyes wandered back to the screen, I caught sight of a wheelchair next to me. My eyes widened at my realization. I closed out of the window, repositioned myself on the couch, and tried to forget what I saw. Searched my grandparents' browser history when I was visiting them in Cali. Found about 15 different foot fetish videos viewed each day, but just for 1 month. Turns out it was the month my 13-year-old autistic cousin was living with them. He loves giving people foot massages. I have a friend who cam chats with girls. He does this while people are over. And it isn't just talking. They are naked and fingering themselves on screen, and he taped up his webcam so they can't see him. I've been playing Xbox on his TV and turned to say something to him, only to see some 17-year-old chick finger banging the crap out of herself on a cam for him. Other friends have seen the same thing, so he does this often, and shamelessly I guess. Thing is, if he's aware you're looking at him, he'll minimize the chat or hide it. TBH, I don't see how Upstory is that creepy. He has probably used that pin since he was young, when we all did slightly strange things for love, and sees no reason to change it. After all, who would guess it? Some people might think the fact you dug deeper is just as creepy. I had a friend who accidentally opened my gym locker, then proceeded to stalk an old flame of mine, and then he stole my pin. A friend told me that he discovered his GF's younger brother in the bedroom with his dog and a jar of peanut butter. Before anyone asks, no, it wasn't Colby. Poor Colby. Not really creepy, but I found out this year that my best friend's brother had physically shamed and abused her and her 2 younger sisters. The creepier part was when he used to joke about our breasts when we were 12ish. I never knew he was abusing her and thought it was funny he was comparing my then A cup to her B cup. Poor girl. She's trying to work up the courage to report him to the NZ police. I will support her no matter what. I'll be honest, I think you going on Facebook and looking for people who might fit his pin is a lot creepier than him continuing to use one that he probably picked years ago, but will still remember. Today his friend learned that he's a serious Facebook stalker. Former friend of mine is into dismemberment, not just chicks missing limbs, but the act of removing limbs. He has a fantasy of cutting a girl's limbs off, mid-coitus. That boy is going to do something very illegal someday. So I was good friends with this dude when I was in middle school, around the time I discovered pee on the internet. This one day we were having a conversation over MSN Messenger about what every 12-year-old boy was talking about, naked girls. He started talking about pee sites, and he started sending me links. I remember one particular link he sent me led to a page titled Amputee of the Month, which contained different pictures of partially nude girls, all which had missing limbs. It weirded me out, but I assumed it was a joke, as this guy was known for having a weird sense of humor. Flash forward to 1.5 years later, I had forgotten all about the weird legless naked chicks. We were sitting in class and we were having a discussion about Forrest Gump. He had been reading the book and was telling me all about how it was different from the movie. He handed it to me off his desk, and I started flipping through the pages. When I did, his bookmark fell out, which was a printout of a legless, armless, naked anime girl in some exaggerated pose. He snatches it from my hand all angry like, I still know the dude. We haven't spoken about it since. TLDR. Find out my friend was into amputee hentai P as an adolescent. I think it's a joke. Turns out it isn't. Top posts are talking passwords, but some truly creepy crap I discovered about my friend John. He and his buddy Carlin hit a back road, seniors in high school, and drinking heavily. Carlin was driving, speeding, and hit a ditch at roughly 65 miles per hour. He was not wearing a seatbelt and was thrown through the windshield. Broken neck, died. John, however, was wearing his seatbelt and somehow through the impact, was impaled by a road sign through his abdomen. He climbed away from the truck through the broken windshield, all the while carrying with him a steel pole through his midsection, and went to seek help. Upon seeing his dead friend, he apparently grabbed some scalp, hair, skull from the windshield where Carlin had gone through and put it in his pocket. Fast forward about 3 years, I find a jar in his room, ask WTF is inside of it, and he tells me the aforementioned story. Holy freaking frick. Previously, on Dexter. This isn't exactly about a friend, but her parents. Instead, her parents had gone to the store, and like the sneaky 13-year-olds we were, we started looking through some stuff on the computer. Ended up opening some file, can't remember the name, and found this EP followed by some rather provocative photos of mom and dad. To this day, I can't look at them the same way. They left their laptop unattended in college, so naturally people had a look on it. Within seconds their P collection was revealed, including debauchery anime, father-daughter anime, gay and horse pee. Photos of me, over 50, all in a folder. Didn't find out personally, still pretty weird. Makes sense, she used to send me letters in school and I never really put 2 and 2 together. It took a police standoff to find out that an old roommate had murdered his father and sister over a year earlier. Evidently he was having an incestuous relationship with his sister, and when that went awry he beat her to death with a jack handle. She was found dismembered in an igloo cooler in the trunk of a car parked at his dad's auto shop where he worked. His dad was found in the recliner where he had been shot. The mobile home was littered with air fresheners. To keep up appearances, he had been keeping up with all of the bills and even mowing the lawn. Before giving himself up to the police, he holed up in his ex-wife's apartment with her and her 2 children. He shot them all before surrendering. For the record, everyone's pretty freaking weird if all you do is think about is freaking in the missionary position for the purpose of procreation. You're in the minority. Not my friend, my brother. He dated my best friend for a long time, and she went through his Facebook once when he left it open at her house. He was having a conversation with a girl about how he broke his leg on his mountain biking trip in Colorado and his upcoming trip to India with the Peace Corps. This is interesting because my brother has never broken a bone, been to Colorado or India, nor is he in the Peace Corps. Even weirder is that the girl he was chatting with was one of his previous campers. He was a camp counselor at a summer adventure camp, so he was not only lying about everything in his life, but he was doing it to impress a 16-year-old girl when he was a 20-year-old with a girlfriend. She never told him she saw it, and I never told him I know about it. I think it's extremely creepy. I also wonder what other crazy stories he's made up to impress strangers and friends. This was a girl I worked with for about 5 years. One day someone at the office sent me a link asking is this Steph, and indeed it was. She was a foot model dominatrix person. The girl I worked next to for years was selling videos of men licking her feet. Some were actually hot where she would masturbate and put the bottom of her feet as a focus. I never said a word to anyone, but it was impossible for me to look at her the same after that. She is starting to make a name as a film actress now. A buddy of mine worked for a nursing home. One of the people he worked with was pretty cool apparently. They used to smoke trees together and whatnot. Mind you, she was in her early 80s and he is 22. The night she died they found semen in her glory hole. It was his. Apparently there was an investigation. He got fired and kicked out of his mom's house. His wife was the one that told me during one of her fits. I felt weird bringing it up to him, but did anyways. The look on his face, I knew. The night I asked him, we were out on his porch smoking some bud. Last time I ever smoked with him, and my racing thoughts got the better of me. So, whatever happened to your old patient, I said. He turned away and said, dude, why the frick would you kill my buzz like that? Then I asked about the investigation. Very vague, did not give details. Abby was talking about. He gave this look that just screamed, what the frick did you just say? And then he changed the subject by rambling about how I can't even hold a job because I'm a spoiled pea. This is not information you go snooping around to figure out. Everyone has a dark secret that cannot be openly shared with anyone, even a good friend. Especially something of this sort. Do I think it was post-mortem? No, I knew him better than that. Then again, I'm in no position to rule out possibilities. My theory is that they were fricking and she slipped away during. But like I said, there's always the possibility. This one wins. Creepiest story. I used to have a roommate who was socially awkward and sometimes very annoying, but still more or less a regular guy. He was a proud Christian and he was never completely fine with me being an atheist, but he was still making no problems. However, once when I was away for 2 weeks, I came back a day earlier than I said I would and figured out that he was sleeping in my bed all of the time and working only on my desk, so that he would clean them from the evil spirits. Later I found out that he put a huge cross below my mattress and splashed the holy water he got from a friend priest on my bed. He even brought some friends priests with him in the room to pray for my soul. But the creepy thing only started. The next morning police crashed in our room and picked him up for questioning. It turned out that the good guy Christian was accused for violating and killing an old guy. Knowing that I was gay, he tried to blame me for all of that. Anyway, he was released and I had to live with him for another few months before the semester was over. The worst few months of my life. This is creepy as in scary, not weird. I found out my best friend used to kill people for the Serbian government. I knew she was a tough bee and I never wanted to be on her bad side, but when I found that out I almost crapped my pants. I've gone shooting with her multiple times and she is very good with firearms. When I mentioned it after the second time we went, she just shrugged and said that her dad used to take her shooting a lot. One time she disappeared for 4 days and no one knew where she had went. Her husband was very calm about it and just kept saying I have no idea where she is, but she'll be back. Don't worry. She came back with a massive black eye and insisted she fell. Things like this kept happening and I started joking around that she's gotta be an assassin. 2 years later, I found out she actually was. She had quit the year before because something traumatic happened. She still hasn't told me and I will never ask her. And now every year there is one day that she just completely shuts down. I know it's the anniversary of whatever it was that made her quit. She's told me a few stories, and the fact that she started when she was 17, but we don't talk about it much. I just take it upon myself to try and control her anger when we go out drinking. Bulls, that is way too badass to be freaking true. Upvote anyways. Okay, to be fair this didn't happen to me, but I'll still tell it. I have a good friend who once had this friend back when he was younger. I use the term friend loosely as he was one of those people you don't really like and actually annoy the frick out of you, but you still have to pretend to like them. We all know one of those. Anyway, one time this kid was at my friend's house hanging out in his room. My friend goes off to the bathroom, leaving the kid in his room. When he gets back from the bathroom, the door is locked and this kid refuses to answer my friend's pleas to open his door. Soon, my friend is able to unlock the door through other means. I can't actually remember how at the moment. It's not really important. He enters the room with his dad because they thought something might have happened to him because he was not answering them. Instead, they find him sitting on the floor sniffing my friend's underwear. I'd say that was when things got awkward with that kid, but he was pretty freaking strange to begin with, so I guess it's not much of a surprise. My friend jacks off to pictures of his Facebook friends. Then I found out that apparently is a common thing. Kinda creeps me out, really. This one is pretty crazy. I had a roommate in college called John. John was a computer buff. Pretty much knew how to run computer crap. Anyway, John had a huge problem with drugs which was exacerbated because our other roommates sold drugs. John's behavior slowly was getting worse and worse over the course of time due to heavy drug use. At one point he drank 3 bottles of Robitussin to reach what he called the Sigma plateau of tripping. But that is a story for another day. As he slowly got worse into drugs his behavior became more erratic and he at some point owed the other roommate a substantial amount of money. Towards the end of our association with him, all the other roommates paid his portion of the rent for the last 2 months because he had no money left. At some point he stopped going to all of his classes and eventually failed out. One day he was gone and we didn't see or hear from him again, but he did leave all of his belongings in his room which my drug dealing friend claimed as collateral. At this point he was owed $1,000. His computer was the only thing of any real value and he sold it to someone who was also pretty good with computers. Later in the week we get a call from said kid who tells us that John's computer was filled with tons of sick and twisted pee and freaking child pee. He said they were of little kids and he was forced to throw away the hard drive for fear of getting arrested. We heavily considered calling the cops. We never heard from John again. TLDR. Found child pee in ex-roommate's computer. Was talking to some of my friends that are girls and they mentioned that Eric is a creep. Asked why and said that he seemed nice and okay. They wouldn't talk. Later found out he gave one of them a letter asking if he could frick her in the butt. Goddamn, is it a nice butt, but restrain yourself, son. A love letter. How romantic. The laptop I borrowed of a friend until mine is fixed had a download folder full of 15-second clips of really weird pee. Asian ladies tied up and being peed on. Women in red gimp suits. I caught my brother fapping to bestiality in the bathroom once. And it wasn't regular internet bestiality. It was a series of pics of our two British bulldogs going at it. I mean normal animal freaking together. Don't know the category for that. A friend of mine takes photos of all the girls who he came close to, but failed to frick. A book of shame per se. Bit awkward when I turned up in one of the albums. About 2 years ago, I found myself with two very good friends, a guy and a girl. The guy was my housemate, and the girl I loved to death. I'm a gay dude. It was that kind of relationship. We did everything together and things were good. Then one night I got drunk with the girl, Sally, and she told me that she'd slept with Oliver, my housemate. I'm pretty open about my private life. So I said, that's cool. Are you guys an item now? Or was it just a once off? She then proceeded to tell me about how she'd gotten very drunk at our house and fallen asleep on the couch. I remember this night. I put her on her side and woke up in Oliver's bed with broken memories of being carried upstairs and then fricked. At this point I went very quiet. I was totally fine with them fricking, but that's not what happened. He had fricked her while she was unconscious. I wandered outside and very calmly punched a hole through my neighbor's iron fence and then wandered back inside, hand covered in blood, telling Sally that I would kill him the next time I saw him. Sally saw how angry I was and made me swear that I'd never speak to Oliver about it, or anyone else. The three of us were sort of the nucleus of a larger group of friends, and she knew that if this got out all chaos would break out in our little gang, and was worried that she'd be blamed for it. After much reminding her that what he'd done was debauchery and he should be in jail, she basically told me that if I uttered a word to anyone, she'd never speak to me again. I loved this girl like any gay guy loves his FH, so I couldn't bear to lose her. So for the next month, I had to deal with living in the same house and this horrible human being, this debaucher. Eventually I moved out and shifted to an entirely different country because it was the only solution I could see to my problem. I still keep in touch with Sally. God, that was long. This is the first time I've ever told anyone this story. Thanks Reddit. Also, names have been changed. TLDR. Housemate debauchered my best friend while she was unconscious. I found out but was forbidden from telling anyone, so I left the country. There was a school buddy of mine that I shared an affinity for weapons with. This led to many a hunting trip, and we had a lot of fun drinking beers and doing general manly stuff. One day we stumbled across the local tip, where we saw a couple really mangy looking dogs that had clearly been dealt a hard hand in life and were in a really sad state. He suggested we put them out of their misery, and I reluctantly agreed that these poor dogs would be better off. I didn't think much of this. It seemed like a fairly humane thing to do, until I came over to his place a while later and he showed something he was particularly proud of. He had a calendar with markings all over it. He said something along the lines of this being his trophy calendar, so I assumed he meant that it was what he marked all his hunting trips on. I was right, but not quite like I expected. This calendar contained confirmation of all his kills, hunting trip or not. Chipmunks and random vermin? Yep. Local cattle and farm stock? Yep. Neighborhood dogs and cats? Yep. I cut off contact with him after this. I really didn't like this side of it and I was just a sport hunter, nothing more. After a while though I caught up with him in a different county and he invited me to a local gun show. Although I wasn't really happy with his calendar, he said he'd stopped and he always had some great weapons and was fairly fun to be around. He was great with a crossbow and really good with a variety of rifles. After a while his scary side came back though, and he'd sometimes boast about his conquests or start talking about how easy it would be to get away with murder once you know what killers do wrong because he read a lot of material on serial killers. Ashamedly I turned a blind eye to this. A couple years later while I was reading a newspaper I came across an article about several unsolved murders in the area. A few days later a report came on the news. I was really torn up inside. I didn't know what to do because I've always been loyal, but there's a point that loyalty doesn't reach. I contacted authorities, who put him on surveillance and got me to gather a few pieces of incriminating evidence. I was sick to my stomach that I'd ever known such a person. Thankfully he was sentenced for 5 consecutive sentences of 30 years to life, although I heard he was possibly linked to 11 total murders. He died in prison from cancer. TLDR. School buddy turned out to be serial killer who hunted people like he would deer. So people who are doubting the validity of this, and I kept names and links out of it for myself, but I guess since this is a throwaway anyway I'll share. The guy's name is Thomas Lee Dillon. Anyone curious enough I'm sure will find a mountain of evidence. Apparently, he must have missed out on the episodes where serial killers got caught because they said showed someone incriminating hints that might lead to their arrest. Beyond friend's computer. Spot conspicuously named folder. Discover album of photos. All of girls we know. All our pictures with their boyfriends. All the boyfriends are caught or acid photoshopped out with Paint. Forgot to mention. When we confronted him about it he said, I couldn't fap to it with insert boyfriend's name looking at me. He thought this was a satisfactory reason. I'm pretty close with my boyfriend's brother. Due to boring reasons, my boyfriend and I had to pack up his stuff. Stupidly, I did his closet. You think I would have learned my lesson the time my friend's dad found her celeb, but nope. I found 6 blow-up dolls. 6. I mean, sure, not all that creepy in the scheme of things, but I still know my socially awkward friend has 6 blow-up dolls that were probably all Asian woman. I get fleshlights and Tengus, bit floppy, poorly done blow-up dolls that don't even look like women. I'm not so cool with that. I tried not to look, but those boxes are not subtle. Since the other options for packing his closet were his brother, his mother, one of his sisters, and his niece, I figured I was the best person to keep that secret. Seeing him is now awkward, and I'm sure he wonders who knows about the blow-up dolls. I put them in the bottom of a large box and covered them all with towels. Crap, he's totally going to unpack that one publicly, isn't he? Stayed late drinking at a friend's house. Almost had a threesome with her and her boyfriend but she got uncomfortable. He didn't take it well and eventually cut his arm up and smeared blood on her legs and stormed out to sleep at his mom's house. Creepiest thing was just how calm she acted, like it wasn't out of the ordinary or anything. They now have a 1-year-old son together. By far the most disturbing is that my closest friends' families used to go down to Rocky Point together. When they were about 14 they still had to share a bed. One day my friend accidentally misspoke and revealed the summer before he had been fapping one night and that he accidentally came on my other friend's back and never told him. My 19-year-old friend that I lived with was in an online relationship with a 14-year-old kid that lived in Ireland that she was in love with. She had no real life contact at all with anyone but her mom, sister, brother and myself, so she was really awkward and clingy. I found out that she had been sending naked pictures. If it matters, she's very fat with very flat pancake boobs and huge nipples. To the kid, he was traumatized. She also asked him for naked pictures. Bro, a fat chick with small boobs is called a flatso. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.